Hello students, welcome to the video lectures for the course Computational Thinking for Structural Design. Today we are going to discuss about functions, and I am V. Premlata, Assistant Professor in CSE Department, and we will be discussing this topic right now. So what will be the aim of the session in here? To familiarize students with the basic concept and necessity of functions. What will be the objectives of this session is that we will know how to implement the functions and know about the categories and types of functions. What will be the outcomes of this session is that you will understand the concept of functions and how to implement the examples and categories, and finally we will summarize the topic. Now let us have a quick introduction. Every C program must have a main function and any number of other user defined functions. Now what is the necessity of function is that whenever we have a program, we have a large complex code, right? So to understand such a code, it can have a difficulty in understanding, and when we debug the program, the testing may take a lengthy process, and it also is difficult to identify the logical errors. And we can do the same set of instructions can be repeated n number of times within the program. Suppose if I want to calculate the addition of 5 and 4, I'll write a logic. If I want to do the addition of 7 and 5, again I'll write the logic. So here we are making same set of statements n number of times within the program. So these repetitions will be making it more lengthy code there. So it is difficult to update the program also if at all any error occurs there. Okay, so what would be the solution for all these things? When we have a large program, when we have huge to understand, and it is difficult for us to identify such kind of logical errors and same number of codes within the program and updating. So for these all, we have a simplification where the big program can be divided into some functional parts. We call them as, so we are saying as functional parts. So we call them as subprograms, and this is defined as a function cell. Means the code we are writing into some functional parts that we say as subprograms, and that we call as functions. Okay, these functional programs are individual codes. These functional parts are individual codes. Now what are we doing with the individual codes here? These individual codes are compiled individually when they are called, and these are integrated, and then we get the single result output from this. So in this way, when we are writing individually some portion of calculation, so it is easy for us to understand the logical errors, and the same repetition of statements will not be done. So we will see one by one with some examples how these functions can be implemented. We'll see the definition for the functions and what is the syntax we are supposed to maintain for the functions. And functions, as we say, these are functional parts and subprograms. This is also called as modularization, where the task what we are doing is done separately somewhere, right? Just an outline I could like to give to you. Suppose every C program or every task, we have a 3-step to solve the problems. One is that for the first one we are going to have the input, then the second one is that the process state, then the third one is the output one. Input is nothing but the information or raw materials or data which are provided for us. Process is nothing but the calculation part, what we are supposed to do. Output is the resultant, what we are supposed to obtain. Now just I am giving an outline in the format of a flowchart. So I am starting my task in here where I have taken some input, any kind of input in here. The second step is that I am supposed to do the processing part, which is nothing but calculation. Now in a regular main program, what we do all these 3 phases in the main module itself. Now what is modularization or the functions? What we are going to do is that this process is done by someone else. Now who is that someone else? The someone else is the user defined function, right? On behalf of us, someone else is doing this calculation. So why someone else has to do this process is that whenever we have these logical errors, if the code is very lengthy to identify the errors or such cases, what happens is that only this part of user defined process, that calculation is done by someone else. But that some user defined function can be done by providing some information. What is that information? We give that inputs to that particular user defined function. So then it takes the inputs, then it calculates in this user defined function, and then it is given back to our main program. Then the main program will be giving us the resultant value. So these are the three phases for every program, where function is nothing but the calculation process is done in a user module. What is a user module? How we have to define that? What are the rules we are supposed to write? We will see in the coming slides. Okay, I hope you understood right now. So what we are going to do, when you are writing, till now you have learned something as writing the program only in some main module. This is one of the main function. Now what you are going to do here then, where the processing part or the calculation part is done in the user defined module. Okay, so how to do that we will see then. Now just an example I could like to give you. So this is a main module, that is where I am calculating some multiplication of some m and a there. So I am writing something as the calculate is a user defined function. So I am giving some values of m and a. So this is an outline how this modularization or this function will be implemented. Just a depict of this flowchart I am just giving for you there. So for a method in the main module, the method name is calculate. I have given the name as m and a. Now I am passing the m and a values to the method name. What is that method name? Calculate. So this calculate method takes the values of m and a and it performs some operation. I am storing that in f, and that I am passing to the variable which is available in main function. The variable name is as res. Just an outline I am giving, we will go in detail. So I will repeat once again. This is the main module where I am taking the inputs as m and a. These m and a variables I am passing to the function. So the function name is as calculate. So once I pass to the function name, it does the processing part in here there. Okay, it does the processing part in here. Now what is this function name here? This is called as the user function name. So into the user function, when I send some data, so these values it takes and it performs the operation, and here I am storing in a particular variable as f. Now I am returning back to the variable which is available in the main function. So that is as res. So this is an outline. Just we will see how this is being implemented. So by doing such a way, in this modularization way and function way, what are the advantages is that the repetition of the code can be avoided. Suppose if I want for 5 and 2, I want to calculate 5 into 2. So in the main program only I can write the process part for one time. If I want to have for 4 and 10, again I will be writing 4 into 10. If I want for 2 more values, again I will be writing some method. So what are we doing here? N number of times how many inputs you want to do, those many times you are writing that processing functions there, processing statements. So to overcome that, simply I will just pass it to the user function. How is that? We will see in next slides. So the very first advantage is that repetition of the same code can be avoided. Okay, then once we are defining the structure there, this function should be like this and it has to perform like this, then n number of times, infinity times we can keep on doing that. For example, the same thing, if I switch on a fan, every time it will be doing the same operation as just rotating. Right? The best example is that any device whichever we are having in our surroundings, something like a light, fan or a pen or our laptop, they have some instructions which I have given them. So the moment you just invoke them, they does the operation and they close it off. So we are defining once and it can be infinity times we can keep on invoking them. Switch on a pen, switch on the light and the fan, as well as your laptop. When you open, flip it up and open, so it has its instruction that it has to perform like this. Okay, now whenever we are doing such kind of categories like this, sub programs and functional parts, that is as your functions, we can easily identify like where the problem has been erased. So the readability of the program increases, and it is easy for us to fetch exactly where we have gone wrong. Okay, so the readability of the program increases when we are putting that into a functional category. And also the main advantage is that it is error free code there, because we can easily identify that we can where exactly the problem has been erased, and we can rectify that. That's what debugging will be easy if at all we are doing with the functions then. And any problem in any particular module, what happens is that it is easy for us to change or update the functionality. Okay, so suppose if I say one example, I am having a code in here which is having some 100 lines. Somewhere in 56th line I got an error there. So what I am supposed to do, I am supposed to check from the starting till wherever the problem has been erased, I will be doing that. Now if this program, the 100 lines, is divided into something as 10 units, some 10 statements. Suppose this part of code is having some error there. So only if this one, if I am rectifying, then it is very easy for me to reduce the code cost, as well as it is error free. We can easily change, we can update, and for better performance also it will be there. Okay, so this is an overline of functions where any task whatever we want to do, we are sending that to a user function, and the user function performs that and we do that. Okay, user function performs that and it returns back the result so that we can do in minimum time there. Okay, so we'll go ahead with how it is being implemented. Now we'll see one example first, then we'll go with the categories and we'll go with the types of the functions there. So suppose now first I want to add addition of two numbers. How would you write a variable things? Just you take two variables, you just write it as C, sum equals to a plus b. Now I want that to be in a function category modularization way there. So what we are supposed to do, I am supposed to do three phases of doing any task there. First is the inputs, that is a and b. What is the calculation part? I am supposed to say it as a plus b. Now what is the output there? So the sum of these two. Now functions is nothing but input will be in the main program, process is done by somebody else. Process is nothing but the one which is required for the task to be completed. Okay, so that we say as a processing phase. So as you know everybody, every program starts with your hash include stdio.h. So just I included that for your convenience. Now can you see this something which is new for you? Int calculate, int, and in braces and end with a semicolon. What is this? I'll say now. Now every program you are familiarized with writing as something as int main or void main. That means every program is having one main function, right? One main function. Till now we have written with the prescribed one which is as one main function where all the input, process and output is available. Now whenever we are using any user function is nothing but the one we have named. User function is nothing but the one we have named. Now the system should know that I am using this. I am using the certain user function. That's what before the main function you are supposed to insert which user function you are using. So I have written here as calculate, but it can be anything of yours. You can write it as sum, you can write it as add, you can write anything of your choice, because that is my task, my function name, so I can write anything there. Then what are these? You can say that these are the inputs. We also call these as arguments. Now I want two inputs. So which category of these two? Just an example I am taking as integer variables. If you want to take it as a character, if you want to take it as a float, any data type can be done there. So as we are doing with the addition, I am taking the inputs in integer category. So how many of the inputs there? 2. So that's what int and int. So this indicates that how many inputs you are supposed to give. Inputs in the sense these are arguments. Okay, now what should be the output of these inputs is that I want the same category of data type, that is as integer, so that's what here also int here. That's what int should be mentioned, and this should be ended with a semicolon. This is the prototype where we are giving how this user function should be included in my program there. And a point to be noted is that this has to be above the main function, because we are using this in the main function, right? Main function does not know this is a user function which we are using. So we are first only declaring this. This is nothing like declaring the variable initially. So we are using this user function. So what we are supposed to do? We are supposed to name that first before the main function. So it is mandatory. You have to remember one thing is that rule 1 is that whenever you are using any user function, you are supposed to name that, or you are supposed to declare that first. Now how you are supposed to declare? That is the user function name. This is the list of the arguments, and this is the return type of data type. Okay, we'll see this in detail. Now we'll write the program. So I'm taking as a regular schedule int main, and I'm taking as my aim is taking two numbers and I'm doing the operation on this. So I'm taking variable as m and a, which is with the values as 5 and 7. Now see something, I have written something as result res equals to calculate m and a. Can you see any operation in here? No. Some user defined function is here, inputs are passed to here, and the moment it is performed, you are supposed to store the value in the variable which is called as res, right? And the moment you say this, these m and a values are passed to somewhere, where? To user defined function, that is as calculate. So this immediately invokes this sub function, and that sub user function name is calculate. Can you see here? Now it takes the inputs of m and a. M and a are passed in here. Now m value will be 5 and a value will be 7. Now again I have taken a variable as f. Now I calculated something as f equals to m into a. Can you see where is the processing part right now? The processing part is done in the user function. User function is nothing but wherever I want to do, I am supposed to name one name for that function and perform the calculation there. And this is the main method. This is the main method. Okay, so you can ask like, ma'am, it's a simple calculation, can we write in a single program there? Yes, single program can be written, but if I want to do this for n number of times, more number of times, infinity times the same thing, how will you write? M plus a, m into a, all these things, repetition of first statements are there. For that reason only the operation is done in a user defined way, right? And whenever we call, this function can be called many times. I can call it for n times also. I can put it in a loop and do that. So this process is done in here. The processing phase is done in here. Now once it is done, can you see here I have mentioned something as return f, means the output of this one will be 35, because f equals to ma, right? So the output of this one will be 35, and this is the value of 35 here, and 35 is being stored in res right now. Okay, 35 is being stored in res right now. Now res will be holding as 35, and now I am printing that value there. Got it? Now I am printing the value. Now where exactly the calculation part is done there? You have to have a keen observation in here, where see here, these are the inputs m and a, and this is the output phase. Where is the calculation and process part there? The processing part is done in the user function, right? The processing part is done in the user function. What is the user function name? Calculate. Okay, just I have given an overview for you. Now we'll go into the definitions and we'll see the categories, how many categories are there and how we can implement these functions with the list of these arguments. And one more thing, again I repeat, please remember that whenever you are writing any function name, user function name, you are supposed to include that first above the main function, because the system does not, the main function does not know who is calculate, right? So we are supposed to name it before mentioning to the main method that I am using this user function called as calculate, which is having inputs as 2, that is as integer category and integer category, and I want the return type of that user function as integer only. Anything which is used in the main function or in a program, we are supposed to first declare them. So first is that we are declaring here then. So just I have given an outline for you how this will be done in a programming way. Now we will see how one by one how these categories are there, how we can be implemented. Now first quickly we will have a definition with the function there. A function is defined as a block of codes that are used to perform a specific task. As I told you, every function, every main method or every task will be having 3 phases: input, process and output. Now we are focusing on the processing part. So function is nothing but a certain task we are supposed to do, work which is given for us, in that task we are supposed to finish off. So these codes define a single time, and they can be, means once it can be defined, once it can be outlined, and we can use it multiple times as per the need of the programmer. Whenever I want, I can switch on the fan. Whenever I want, I can switch on the light. Whenever I want, I can open my laptop there. Once it is fixed that flip it up, switch on, I get my laptop there. Get up and switch on the switch there. So it is already fixed there and I am utilizing that there. Now I am the person who is going to invoke that particular device there. The same way the programmer is the one who is invoking the user functions, and it is written by the user itself. Okay. Now 2 types of functions are there in the C program, because we have already known something as predefined, means already available in the library. So first category is predefined functions, also known as library functions. Second one is user defined functions, which are defined by myself. Suppose if I want to calculate a velocity formula, then I'll write the user function as velocity. I want to calculate something as a series of Fibonacci series, I'll write the user function as Fibonacci series. I want something as a palindrome, I'll write the function as palindrome. Now these are the things which I am creating. So I am creating so that it will be a user defined function. So we'll have one what is exactly the meaning of these predefined functions and user defined functions. Okay. So what is a predefined function there? As I told you, these are already available in the system library. These are already defined, and whenever we want we can use them. So already they have defined what they are supposed to do, stored in the system library, and whenever needed we can do. So I think many people are familiar with using the printf, scanf, right? So all these are already available. What is the use of printf statement? To print any particular variable value. What is the use of scanf function? To go and give the values and store into a particular system there, right? So if I want to use them, you have to note one thing is that if you want to use any predefined function, you are supposed to use the header file which is included for that. Now if I want to use something as string length, which I am supposed to use string.h. If I want to use any power function, then math.h. So these are already available. What they are supposed to do for that particular task also is designed, and we only are just fetching them and using. So these are known as your predefined functions. Okay. Now what is a user defined function? User defined function is the one which the user writes a functionality according to the programming requirements. Okay, the user writes a functionality according to the program requirements. Now it can be anything, finding of addition of 2 numbers, subtraction, or finding Fibonacci series or factorial, anything. So for that we are giving one framing or naming for that particular block of code, that we say it as user defined functions. Now as we have learned what are these predefined functions and user defined functions, now we are supposed to create our user defined functions, right? So what is the syntax? We have to follow some terminology, how we have to support, how we are supposed to create them, how can we call them, and how can we define them. So the very first one is that your function declaration, right? First only I have told you in the main function, before the main function we are supposed to write this return type and the function name and the list of arguments. Arguments, list of arguments is nothing but the number of inputs. Function name is the user defined function what you want to have. Return type, now the output of that particular user function is whichever category of data return type you wanted, that return type you are supposed to write. Suppose if I want int, you write it as int sample. I want 3 variables, so I'll write it as int comma int comma int. I am finding addition of 3 numbers, so 1 variable for A, 1 variable for B, 1 variable for C. What is the name here? Sample. Output of means the resultant of these 3 will be an integer, so it is as integer variable. The return type of data type what you want, that you are supposed to specify here. Okay, then this is the first point. Every maximum there is a 3 rule which will be working out in C programming. 3 rule as solving a task: input, processing and calculation. In functions also, first thing is that you have to declare it. Where we are supposed to declare it? Above the main function, right? Above the main function. In the previous slide we have seen that how we are supposed to write a program, right? This should be done above the main program there. Okay, then the second one, function call. The function call is nothing but invoking them. If you have declared and if you are not used, there is no point there. You have to use that. To use that, what you are supposed to do, you are supposed to invoke that. Invoke in the sense function call, right? So fans are available until and unless if I don't switch on them, there is no point of that there. So how to use them? Just what you do, make the switch to be on there. That is known as your function call there. Okay, with inputs or without the inputs, we'll see that. Okay, that's what you have seen something as calculate in the previous example, where you have given as m comma a. That means take these inputs and send to this user defined function. This is the second one. So first one is the naming, second one is invoking, third one is the definition. Okay, I have called it. What is the task the device or the user function should do there? It should have some instructions in that, right? So that instructions, what we are supposed to write, that we say it as function definition. So in function definition, again we follow the same thing, which is as your return type space function name and the inputs, and you don't end with a semicolon. That means that it is not ended in here. This is having some structure, right? And it has to end the moment you find out something as close parenthesis. So all these set of instructions what are available in this open parenthesis, in between close parenthesis and open parenthesis, all are performed, then only this is completed. That's what every function will not be ended with a semicolon. Then you should have a doubt like, ma'am, how about the first one where we are ending with a semicolon here? Yes, we are just naming here, so semicolon is must in here. Okay, so the 3 rule again for the functions is that whenever you are using any user defined function, above the main function you are supposed to include this, and you are supposed to invoke that. That we say as function call. And the third one, we are supposed to define. Define is nothing but what I am supposed to do in here. In the example you have seen something as I have taken that value as m and a, and I have said f equals to m into a. Means here I have designed what I am supposed to do in the calculation process. Okay, what I am supposed to do in the calculation process, I have done here. Defining is nothing but mentioning what you are supposed to do, writing what you are supposed to do. These 3 are very important for you. Again I repeat, whenever you are using your user defined function, first you have to name them, because the main function does not know who is this calculate, who is this sample. If you write in the main program, it will say it as undefined. Any variable, if you are not declaring and you are writing in that, it gives an error for you. The same way the system main function also does not identify. So first, what you are supposed to name it, that is the declaring part. Second, invoke it. Third step is that what you are supposed to do in the user function, that you are supposed to write here, right? Okay, now we will see one by one the examples. Now, as I told you, the moment it is there, we are supposed to write something as, remember, we have to invoke them. So three terminologies as defining, function calling and definition, right? Now little bit in depth we'll go with this. Now I am writing a main function in here. Now the main function is known as the calling function. In this program, can you see, I am having a user function as sample. Now sample is being called by main. Okay, sample is being called by main. That means sample is the one which is invoked by main function. I am main, I am giving as on to the fan there. That means I have invoked the fan there. The same way, main is the function which is invoking the sample there. So main is known as a calling function and sample is known as the called function. Okay, immediately what happens is that the pointer of execution, the line of execution immediately jumps to the user function. Now in the user function, we are supposed to define, right, what is this sample has to do. Sample has to do some set of tasks there. What is that? I have written here something as printf hello students. So what will, guess what will be the output of these this line of code here? So this is the main function, right? This is the main function and this is the user function. What is the main function name here? Main. Do we have any variables? No, but we have one user function. What is that user function? Sample. And one more statement we have, that is as printf statement. So immediately it jumps to the user function, right? And first user function is executed, and what are the statements which are available in this user function? The statement has only one single statement, that is printf hello students, right? Now first hello students is printed, then it the task of this sample has been completed. Now immediately it returns back to the main function and the cursor moves to the next line of execution. What is that? Welcome to KL University. So what will be the output of this one? Hello students, welcome to KL University. Got it? I hope everybody have had the outline of how we are supposed to go with the function calling, the called function and the definition, right? The one who invokes is known as the calling function, the one who is being called is known as the called function, and what we are doing in that particular user function is known as your function definition. Okay, we'll see the categories now there. Just have an example with all these things and we will see the categories of how these functions will be done there. Now you have to remember one thing is that a function can be called by any other functions, but main cannot be called by other functions. User functions can be called by any other functions, but main function cannot be done with the other functions. Now a quick review so that before going to the categories we'll see. So just one is that I am having a main function with two user functions. So the user function's name is as user fun3, user fun2. Immediately what happens now? Wherever the first line is there, so this is user function 2 and in that I am having a printf statement as KL University, and in user function 3 I have a printf statement as hello. So what will be the output of this one now? So first what happens? Function 3 is invoked. Who is the called one? Main has invoked function 3. So immediately what happens? It goes to the user function 3. What is a printf statement there? I mean the statement what we have written? Hello. So what will be the output of the first one? Hello. Now is it completed? Yes. Once it is completed, It goes to the second line in the main function. What is the second line in the main function? User function 2. Now in user function 2, I have given something as a statement as KL University. So what will be the output of this one? Hello KL University. Okay, so I hope everybody are okay with how a functionality or how the procedure of function will be done there. Now we will see the categories, how these are implemented. So 4 categories are there. The very first one is that without arguments and without return values. That means I am not giving any inputs and I don't want any output. Means the main function is not giving any inputs to the user function and it is not expecting any output. Then the second one is that with arguments and without return value. Means arguments are nothing but inputs. Return value is nothing but output. What is arguments here now? With arguments is nothing but I am providing some inputs, right? And I don't want any output. Means you do the calculation there only and print the result there. Okay? So giving the inputs and no output. Then with arguments and with return value. That means I am giving the output and I am expecting the result of for that one there. Now the last category is that without arguments and with return value. I am not providing any inputs but I want some input there. Quickly, simply I'll say this is the main function and this is the user function. What is the first category? I will not give any inputs, right? And I don't want any output. That means I'll just call the function. Just call the function. That means the input is done in here, process is done in here, and the output also done in here. Okay, second category. I will provide the inputs and I don't want the output. So this is the main function. This is the user function. So I will call. When I call, what is the category here? With arguments. That means you should provide the inputs. So I am giving something A and B. The moment you give A and B, process is done in here. Do you want the output here? Return value is nothing but output. Do you want the output in here? No. So what we are supposed to do? Process and output is done in the user phase itself. We are not returning back again. Now third category. Defaultly, whenever you get as write a function, defaultly you are supposed to write this function there, giving the inputs and expecting the output. So the third category is that you are giving some inputs to the user function. So call, give the inputs A and B. To the user function, I am giving the inputs. Once I give the inputs, I have to do the processing part and I have to return back the output because I want the return value. What is the output? I will print in the main method. You don't do that for me there. This is what we are instructing for the user function. Then the last category. Last category is that I am not providing any inputs for you, but you do the processing yours based upon your requirements and you return back the results to me. So just I am invoking there. So no inputs are given. Inputs are taken here only. Process is done in here only. Right now I am returning back to the things. You should be very clear with these 4 categories, right? Defaultly, if at all anything is asked, you are supposed to write with the default category, that is as with inputs and with return value, right? So we'll see now how one category will be working out. First one, without arguments and without return value. That means what? I am not providing inputs and I don't want any output. So this is the things. This is the main method, this is the user method. I am not providing any inputs, right? But I am calling the function there. So it invokes here, it performs the operation in here, and we'll see one example as addition of 2 numbers and how these 4 categories are. Now, what are the 3 things you are supposed to remember when you are doing the function things? First is the naming of the function. Where we are supposed to name this one there. Before the main function, whatever you are writing, the naming of the function should be done. What is the syntax of naming here? return type, space function name, and the list of the arguments. Now say, are we expecting any output? Are we giving any or inputs? No. So what will be the return type now? We are supposed to write it as void. Void is nothing but null. So I am not expecting any output. What is the function name? Add I have given. Am I giving any inputs? No. So this is the function definition I have done. Now in the main, can you see I have invoked only the function name as add. Can you see any inputs processing or output done in the main method? No. What we have done there? We just called add, means someone is doing these operations for us. Who is that someone? This add, right? Now immediately what happens? It invokes the add function, and here only the variables are declared, the processing is done, and the output is done. Now who is the calling function, called function, and the definition there? So you should identify all these things here. I'll do it for one. You just try to identify for the rest of the things. The very first one is that I have done the function declaration. Second one is that calling has to be done. Third one is that the definition has to be done. Now where exactly the task is being done here? Here only. Where are the inputs? In user function. Where is the calculation part? Here. Where is the output? In the user function. So I am not providing any inputs. Can you see here? It is no information is given here. That means no inputs are provided. Just I have called. They are only on behalf of me. They are going to do that one. We will go for the second category, with arguments and without return value. That means I am providing the information. Based upon my information, you perform the task, but I don't want the result, right? So what would be the picture there? So I am supposed to say this is the main function. What is the function name? Add. What we have said? With arguments. That means with inputs. So provide the information. Are we expecting any result? No. So what we are supposed to do? We are not supposed to store in any variable. So directly, what are the three rules again there? First you write the function naming there. Can you see the difference of these two in here? This one and this one there. Where I have not provided no inputs in here, but here you see. This category is as with arguments. So how many inputs you want? 2. I mentioned them. Do you want any output? No. So that is as void. So can you see the difference in here? The function name and the inputs means I am passing the inputs to the user function, and it is supposed to do with those requirements. Now these are known as, this A and B are known as, one more terminology you are going to learn is something as actual parameters. Now A and B are passed in here, and here these becomes as formal parameters. AB are local to main function, A1 and B1 are local to user function, that is as add here. These both are different in here. This A and B are taking a copy of A value is taken as a copy into A1, B value is taken as a copy to B1 there. A will be 10, now that is copied to A1. B will be 20 and that is copied to B1. You can have a doubt like, ma'am, can we use the same variables? Of course you can use it as A and B also. That is not going to have any conflict because these are local to this area and these are local to this area, right? So hope you are good with the storage classes and how the variables are available there. So I am passing the inputs and I am doing the processing here. So these are the two categories, where the first two categories we have seen. Will go with the other two categories in here. The third category is that without arguments and with return value. That means without arguments is nothing but I am not going to give any inputs. With return value is nothing but I am expecting some output, right? So no inputs, but I want some output from the user function. So what we are supposed to do? Just call the function, but once you call the function, it has to return some value to the any variable. right? Store that in some variable then. So what is the first thing you are supposed to remember? Name the function. Can you see here? I am not giving any inputs, but I am expecting some output. What should be the output type, data type? I want it as an integer, so integer, right? So to catch hold of that value, I am taking one more variable as a resultant. Now I am calling a function as add. No inputs are there, and that is being stored in result, and I am printing. Now can you identify any inputs or processing in here? No. Immediately what happens there? This is a function call here. Now add is being called here. Now immediately what happens? Add is being invoked, and now it performs the task here. Now where we are supposed to take the inputs here? Are we getting from the main function? No. So what we are supposed to do? We need to declare from the user function itself. So I am declaring the variable here, two variables, calculating them. Can you see here something as written as? That means S is holding a value as 30. The output of this one is as 30, and this 30, the moment you say it as add function invoked, this is having a value as 30 here. Now this 30 is stored in result. Okay, this 30 is stored in result, and now we are printing the value in result whatever is available. So I am not providing any inputs in here. That is done in the user function only, does the process, and we are returning the value to the main function. Okay, this is the third category. And the fourth category, as I told you, defaultly whenever anyone asks you for writing a function there, until and unless if they restrict you, you are supposed to go ahead with this one there, with arguments and with return value. What does that mean there? Means whenever I invoke that function, I provide some inputs. The same time, I want the outputs to be back stored in some variable there. Okay, now can you have to identify the difference now there. Can you see here the function naming here now? See the function naming here there? No inputs there, but now I am giving some inputs. How many inputs? It can be single variables. You can pass an array. You can give a pointer variables. Yes, anything of our choice we can go there. So just as we are taking an example of two variables, I am taking two variables a and b. What is the name of the function? Add. What is the output type? Integer. Output type is nothing but return type. Okay, so now I am supposed to pass the value. So this is the calling function here. Called function. I am invoking the function here. What is the function name? Add. How many variables you are giving here? A and b. What is a value and b value? A value is 10 and b value is 20 there. Now these are being stored in S there, and I am printing them. Now inputs are given. Now where should be the processing should be done there? The processing should be done in the user function there. Okay, the process is done in the user function. So in the user function, I have written the logic as a1 plus b1, and can you see this? Something as written r. Means this one is been, the result of this one will be 30, and 30 is written back here and stored in S, and S is being printed. S is being printed here. So these are the four categories of functions. If you can practice one by one, it will be very easy for you. You will understand. This is very easy if you understand that. Little bit of practice is needed. So make sure that you practice with the four categories there. So we have learned two categories of functions there, predefined and user defined. Categories we have learned, that is as with functions, all these four categories you have seen, without arguments, with return value, how these inputs and outputs could be done there. Four categories. Now again, the third one you are going to learn, based upon the arguments, we can implement the function in two phases. We can pass the values to a function in two phases, and this is very important whenever you are learning them. So based upon the arguments, means inputs, we can categorize them again into two phases. So that phases are, first one is as call by value, and the second one is call by reference. Okay, whenever we are passing the inputs, we are saying, how we are passing from main function to user function, and what is the change. We are saying we are having two categories, which is as call by value and call by reference. So what is this call by value and call by reference is that now if I call from the main function to the user function whenever I am passing the values. As I told you, the variables which are there in the main function are known as actual parameters. The variables which are there in the user function are known as formal parameters. Right? It takes a copy of this one to the formal parameters. It takes a copy of this one with the, but whatever we are doing is not reflected in the variable there. Okay, so that's what, whenever we are passing the data, the original value, if it is changing, okay, if it is changing, then we say it as call by reference. Okay, if it is not affecting the original values, then we say it as call by value. That means the variables what we are taking from the main function, if any change occurs, we say it as call by reference. If any change does not occur, then we say it as call by value. Now, ma'am, how does we know this change will be occurred or not? The way how we send them from the main function to user function, then whether it has to be changed, it has to be updated, or it has to just take a replica, we'll see one example there. So two other ways based upon the list of arguments, we have two categories of functions again, call by value and call by reference. Okay, so we'll see the first one now, call by value. That means there should not be any change. Whatever you are doing, it should not reflect in the main actual parameters. Original value does not change there. So now I am using some swapping of two numbers. So I hope everybody are familiar, you have learned arrays, loops and all these things. So I hope you know how to swap two numbers. Swap two numbers is nothing but I have a value, b value, suppose it is as 5 and 7. I want to interchange these two. So what will you do? I have another variable. So just first store this value here, then store in here. So it will be 7, this will be 5, and then you can change it there. So same way, what you are going to do is that now we are going to see swapping with this example there. So before going to write any function, what you are supposed to do, first one, write the naming there. What is the name of the user defined function here? Swap. How many inputs? 2. And what is the return type? I am not expecting any output to be in here, so I am writing something as void there. Okay, now in the main function I have taken two variables. What are those two variables? A and B. Now these are known as your actual parameters. What is a function name? Swap. Am I giving the inputs? Yes, inputs are passed in here, so that values are passed to the function in here. Now I am printing A and B. Now immediately what happens now? Can you see in here? What will be the output of program in here? A and B I am passing to the main user function. I am not going to write anything there until this operation is done there. Right now, immediately what happens? Swap function is being invoked. Now A is being copied to A in here, B is being copied to B in here. A, B are local to you. I want everybody to understand how this is done. That's what I didn't change the variable names. It will be the same in here. So A is copied to A only, B is copied to B only. But this A belongs to the main block and this A belongs to the user block. That's what I have specified with the colors there for you to identify that this is the main block and this is the user block. Right now, I am doing the swapping operation. Now I am printing A and B. A will be 10 in here, B will be 20 here. What will be the output of that user function in here? 20 and 10. But these changes are not reflecting in the main method. You get the point that these changes, whatever I am doing, are not reflecting the actual parameters, because these A and B are just I am passing the values, means just like a Xerox copy. So if you take a Xerox of any one document and update in the Xerox one, will it be affecting the original one? No, not at all. So this just I am making that replica of these values and updating in here. So what will be the output of this one right now? 20. So this will be 20 and this will be 10 there. Swap function, user function is done. Now go back to the main method. So this is done. So go back to the main method. In the main method, two more statements are there. What are those? Printing A and B. What is A value here? 10. What is B value here? 20. So what will be the output now? So A value 20, B value 10, again A value 10 and B value 20. Why? Because here we have not done anything here. We have just printed the A, B values. Means whatever changes, whatever operations you are doing on a particular variables which you are getting from the main function, your data are not going to be reflected in the main function. They are not going to be changed. So we say this as call by value. That means the actual parameters are not going to make any changes with the formal parameters. But if I want that whatever I do in the user function, that should be updated in the main function, then you are supposed to use the second category, which is known as call by reference. That means the original values from where you are getting the inputs should be modified the moment I have done in here. Okay, should be updated the moment I have done in here. So same again, I am taking the function definition in here. Now see here, function declaration. Can you see the difference between this one and this one in here? I am taking the pointer variables right now. So what happens with the pointer variables is that whenever I perform anything in the formal parameters, that is nothing but in the user function, that is going to reflect in the address, and there the variable is going to change it. Okay, so we'll see that one there. So now I am taking A and B values. Now can you see the calling of function here and here there? I pass the inputs just as A and B. Can you see here? The function name is swap, and inputs I am passing in such a way that I am passing the address of that variable there. That means the moment you are giving here, the address, whatever you are doing there, that should be reflected in the main method. Okay, that should be reflected in the main method. So I am taking, immediately invokes the swap function definition. In the definition also, can you see here? The moment you are declaring as a pointer variable, the receiving variables also should be as a pointer variable. Now I am having the swapping logic in here. So the moment I do in here, what happens? Immediately whatever you are making the changes here are being reflected in these variables. Okay, how is that? We will see now there. Just for you I have given one. Can you see now? So I am giving as one variable A, B. Now swapping logic as a user function I have given. First one we are going to discuss with call by value, where I am just passing A and B values. So A value is passed, so variable name I have changed PA. B value I have passed, so that is as provided to PB. Now I am taking one temporary variable and I have done the swapping operation. This is your call by value, where just it takes, these are the actual parameters, these are the formal parameters, where I have just taken a copy of these and I am updating the operation here. This is not going to reflect A and B values. Just A value is having a copy in PA, B value is having a copy in PB, and now I am performing the operation here. So this is not going to reflect the original values. This is your call by value. What about your call by reference there? So now I have the main A and B. Can you see here? I have mentioned the address also, so that you will better understand how this is being done there. Now I am passing the values, I am forwarding the inputs in such a way that it is not just a value but it is an address. Can you see here? Now PA holds the address of A, then PB holds the address of B. So whatever operations I am doing in here are being immediately I am saying as this address, means in this address whatever the value is there you are supposed to do. So indirectly I am doing the operations on A and B. So whatever the changes I am doing in this block are being reflected in here whenever you are giving the inputs by the address there. So this is your call by value and call by reference. A simple example I have given you so that it will be better understanding for you. Just like a swapping function, how this call by value and call by reference, the difference you can identify, how these actual parameters and formal parameters will be working out for you there, right? So once again you just have a glance with all these function terminology, then it will be easy for you there. So we learned categories, types, then based upon the arguments, two types again we have learned, call by value and call by reference. Hope functions is very important. First thing is that functions is very important. Make sure that you are doing the case studies as well as many examples for better understanding there again. Now throughout the sessions there you have some set of tasks to be done. So this is an activity is that how the functions will be done. So suppose in my class they asked to find out tallest of all, so you will find it. If they ask you in every branch you have to find out the tallest of everyone there, so this is a function there where the code is as finding the tallest there. For one task you have done, but if it is for more number of people, more number of categories, then what you are supposed to do, the same thing has to be replicated for others also, right? So they have given an activity for you, so try to solve that one there. Again you have a sample again, in an given some array size they have given, you are supposed to find the find the largest of largest element in the given array. These all will help you to do the functionalities and make you to understand and implement the things. So I hope everybody, by this we will be able to understand the way how to implement the usage of functions. Please go through the sessions in here, slides where you have some self-assessment questions. It will be very easy only for you. Go through the classes once again and try to solve these activities and examples there. So just I am showcasing you. I hope you have a better picture on how to implement the functions in here. So ends up with the topic in here. Thank you from CTST team there. Thank you.